NFTs and intellectual property rights, real-life use cases.
Hi, cool. You've got your merch.
Yes. So everyone, meet 𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐬. So 𝐃𝐨𝐬𝐬 is the name of my ape, and this is how he looks like. So it's one of the 10,000 Bored Ape NFTs that was created back in 2021.
Yeah. Now, thank you so much for being here. It's really special because you get to see how it actually works in real life, because this is a real life example of people building businesses with IP. And we're both in Bored Ape Yacht Club together, and I can say it's a thriving community, and we're all so connected there, and everybody supports everyone so much. And so I highly recommend you guys just kind of like look into it and don't just pay attention to the news and the media that says it's just a monkey JPEG, because it's so much more than that. And I'm excited to go through just how much more it is with how do you want to go by 𝐃𝐵aby, JBond?
JBond. JBond.
Yeah, JBond. I'm excited to go through those use cases. So let's start out with what IP actually means. I mean, for those in the audience that are like, what are you talking about?
All right. So IP is a concept that has been around for a long time already. Like, it has been used ever since, like, before the internet. Like, the Comic-Con is ongoing right now in San Diego, but comics has been around even before, like, internet. And the characters that were created back then are now some of the most popular intellectual properties that we have. So IP is intellectual property. And basically, when you own IP, you have the power to monetize it, to create something out of it. And I've seen brands before Web 3, even in Web 2, even in Web 1, even pre-internet days, monetizing their IPs across different media. And now, as internet evolves, brands and their IPs also had to evolve. So you now see brands creating social media pages, for example, for their IPs and such. And I think Web 3 is just the next phase of it. So IP, it's something that has been around for a long time already.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that. So not all NFT projects come with IP right? So
that's correct.
Let's go over like the difference between and how that works. How do you get the actual permissions to use that, and what does that look like?
All right. So if you've been around ever since we start the session this afternoon, we've been discussing about NFTs. And there are different kinds of NFTs. There are NFTs that just go by as art. And that's fine. Like Luis was here earlier, he discussed about curio cards. And curio cards are one of the first art NFTs on the blockchain. And it's special because of the art. But it doesn't go with the intellectual property. Like Luis doesn't give you the intellectual property of that NFT when you buy it. So intellectual property rights only come with NFTs when the creators give it to those who buy the NFT. So how that goes is, for example, for Bored Apes, there are 10,000 Bored Apes. They have different looks. And if you own one of them, you can use that Bored Ape for whatever purpose you want, whether it's your digital identity, whether it's another character, whether it's a merch, whether it's like Bored and Hungry. Like the owners of Bored and Hungry were from US, from California, and they bought a Bored Ape specifically with the purpose of creating a burger store that's based off a Bored Ape. They used that ape, and from that point on, that has been the face of the Bored and Hungry brand.
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about culture and why that's relevant and cool. You know, I've always also been looking at apes for my brother and my dad. They work in accounting, and I wanted to call them the Bored Ape, the Bored Accountant. You know, it's like, why do people identify? What is the benefit of doing that? I guess you could say, as opposed to using your face. Or how do you connect as a brand with the community better in that way?
All right, so just building on the example of a Bored Ape, if you use a Bored Ape for your business, you immediately get the attention of the community. So you already have that existing community that has been fans of the brand, and now they see you creating a brand or a business out of a Bored Ape. You immediately capture them as immediate supporters or immediate people who see the brand. Then another layer would be those who are into Web3. There are a few thousands of people, whether they're into Bored Apes, whether they're into other NFTs like Doodles, CryptoPunks, Azuki. And if they see you creating a business out of like a Bored Ape, they'll also pay attention. So you have that. And then obviously you have the other externalities who have kind of the awareness of, oh, okay, those are the monkey JPEG. So you have some of the people who are not even into NFTs kind of aware what monkey JPEGs are. And I think that's a value. And now if you're building a business, you get introduced to them, oh, this is my monkey JPEG. And this is what he is. This is what he stands for. So there's a lot of things you can do by just owning a JPEG with an intellectual property of it. You can be creative. You can do something more meaningful than just holding it and like just waiting for the value to appreciate.
That's like what I just played in the reel with Snoop Dogg's son. He said, it looks stupid just sitting there in my wallet. I want to do something with it. So
Exactly.
yeah. So it's cool. And, taking that step back and examining this whole movement, when I caught on to Bored Ape, before the hype and everything was happening, I saw that I was going into the Discord and there were grown men, mainly men, because, there weren't anyone at the time, and they're making 8 counts. They were just so excited to be a part of this club when it was nothing. And I was thinking, what is going on here? This is every brand's dream, that people are wanting to build and create value around your ecosystem. So think about that. You start something, you give IP rights, and then people are building on top of that all around the world. Imagine the value it gives to the actual brand, the actual Bored Ape Yacht Club, the 𝐒𝐭𝐨𝐬𝐬 Labs creators, right?
Yeah, speaking of that, like just recently, 𝐒𝐭𝐨 Labs announced Made by Ape initiative, which seems to be an initiative by the Bored Ape Yacht Club to support businesses that are created out of the ape IP. Now, this is the next big step because we've seen for the past 2 years, a handful of like apes, hundreds, thousands of apes creating brands out of their NFTs. But a lot of people had been clamoring for the support of the project, which is like Bored Ape Yacht Club. And now that's what we're seeing. They're moving towards supporting the centralized IP. And for me, that's like one of the first real use cases of NFTs. We all know that NFTs would be something in the future. It can be the deed to your house. It can be like contracts. It can be like all these things. But we're still far from that. At least right now, what we're seeing is that if you are a creator, you can decentralize your IP and empower your community to create on top of it.
Yeah, that's right. To build and kind of like build off of what you created as a creator. It's so cool. So it extends on, and it's so powerful of a concept because we all connect that way. Culture is it's embedded in our culture. It's something that we identify with, and that's how all the biggest brands in the world have been created, right? So that being said, I'd like to talk about your ventures and, the reaction here in the Philippines when Bored and Hungry open.
All right. So, a few things about me. Obviously, I'm involved with several IP businesses involving NFTs. From the start, I've been fascinated with this concept. So before I kind of touch on like what are some of my involvements with IP licensing, I'll just share a quick background about like where I came from before Web3. So before Web3, I was in a telecom company here in the Philippines, and we do licensing of content services from other territories to the Philippines. So basically, we're bringing content here to the Philippines like Netflix, Disney Plus, NBA League Pass, and all these things. And from that point on, I've been involved in the business of IP. I know from the licensor side of things that, oh, okay, this is how like those who own the content protect their content. This is how they go. And now when I knew of NFTs that provide IP, it kind of like shifted the paradigm for me. Now I am the IP holder. Now I can control the IP like how NBA or Disney control the Mickey Mouse, for example. So that's where I came from, and I've always been fascinated about the concept of like you being able to own the IP and be able to do something out of it. So some of the things that I've done, obviously I've done some licensing. I've done licensing with Bugatti bags, which is like one of the big bag brands from the US. They have 𝐿𝐢𝐬𝐬 in one of the luggages that they're selling in Walmart and in Best Buy. I've also licensed 𝐿𝐢𝐬𝐬s to bicycle cards, which is the popular card game. And in one of the card sets that's coming up, Bored Apes will be there. 2 of my apes will be there as well. Here in the Philippines, I've also licensed some of my apes with our local brand that creates merch. I actually wear one of the merch right now, so I'll show you it quickly.
Love it. Love it. Let's see it. Oh, nice. Oh, I love it. That's amazing.
So yeah, that's one of my apes. I've licensed it with Ano Toys Collectivers, which is a brand here in the Philippines. So I've always been like finding ways to create something out of my IP because it's something that I own and I earn royalties out of it. Now, it's something that I was able to unlock, that there's a different kind of value that you can create without you selling the NFT, right? It's because like you own the IP, you can monetize the IP. I'm also involved with some businesses like you mentioned. Bored and Hungry, they launched in the Philippines. The reception has been great. A lot of the people here in the Philippines love the burger because the burger is good. And they don't need to really know that the brand image is an NFT. They just need to see that, oh, okay, it's a cool brand image and I like the burger. That's it. And it's been doing well.
Oh, that's very cool. I actually visited the restaurant and it is delicious, by the way, the burgers there. And it's fun. It gives you a vibe of sense of community and you know that you have your family here and that you can be among people that are like-minded. It's just very cool. Just imagine like all of these massive IPs when they launched, if they already had a strong community around them to support them. I mean, that's a really big thing, right? And Snoop Dogg, for example, in the metaverse, how he's been able to leverage that IP as somebody coming from the Web 2 world is super cool.
Yeah, I actually love Snoop Dogg as an example. Obviously, we all know Snoop Dogg as like this big rap star, selling platinum artist. But what he's doing in Web3 is something that really fascinates me. We all know that his brand is big, but he created a separate brand for himself, Dr. Bombay. That's the name of his ape. His ape, the one with the cheetah skin and the cigar, his name is Dr. Bombay. And he has an Instagram page. He's creating content almost every day. Probably not Snoop Dogg, but his team. But they're building this brand that's not necessarily tied to Snoop Dogg. They want it to be someone else. And that's like how I see a lot of the apes can move forward. You have this picture, like I said, this is J-Baby, and he can be someone that's entirely different from me, entirely separate from me, and I can give him life, or my team can give him life, and he can thrive with or without me.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you can also give other people permission to build around your own IP, right? You can give people permission to use some of your NFTs in their own companies.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so one of the concepts that I took, the one I talked about, the board accountant, I bought a space in the metaverse sandbox right next to Bored Ape Yacht Club, where the apes could walk around and they could see that this is a service. So it also goes beyond that. I think there's also an element of trust there. So to see that, okay, this is an ape IP, I'm going to go and support this. I'm going to choose this over something that's not, right? And so there's a whole dynamic there.
Yes, exactly. Like, it all goes back to how strong the foundation is. Like, from the start, when Bored Ape Yacht Club offered the IP to their holders have been thinking of ways to create something out of these IPs. And it's not really forced. It's something that came naturally because it's one of the ethos of the project to offer the IP as part of the perks you get by being part of like the Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Yeah, so this just isn't just Bored Ape Yacht Club, evidently. It's at any IP, any NFT that allows you to use the IP, right? And so there's so many possibilities. What are some other examples you've seen that you think are really cool in real life?
Yeah, so, sorry about that. One of the cool samples that I've seen is pudgy penguins. So pudgy penguins, they're cute penguins, and they started selling toys of their penguins. And what fascinated me with it is you can say, oh, okay, a cute brand can start selling merch. They were able to sell out fast in Amazon, and you can say, oh, okay, anyone can sell in Amazon. But what surprised me is a friend of mine went to a toy store here in the Philippines, and there's pudgy penguins there. I was like, oh my God, that's global distribution.
That's cool. That's cool, yeah. And normally you wouldn't be able to just create a toy and sell out immediately. So it's that community element that propels the business, right? How important is community in all of this?
Community is, in my opinion, the building block of this. And for any strong IP that comes out of Web3, it won't really come out of Web3 if you don't have a community supporting it in the first place. That's the foundation. That's the building block. And if your community is strong enough, you can start branching out of Web3. You can start offering your product, your IP outside of Web3 because you're confident that there's a community that's already there to support you.
Yeah, no, it's like a massive launch pad for...
Yes, exactly. It's a massive launch pad. And like for any businesses that would want to launch, it's something that they should take a look into and say, oh, okay, this is such a great opportunity to give my product an immediate launch pad. And from there, start off from there, especially if you are eyeing into doing something in Web3.
Yeah, and you're also involved in 𝐴𝐴𝐻, right?
Yes, I'm also an investor in 𝐒𝐿. So how 𝐒𝐿 goes is it's a spring water brand out of California. They're also looking to expand in Asia, but right now, most of the services is offered only within California. So over time, they were able to sell 𝐒𝐿 in 7-Eleven in California. So if you go into 7-Eleven in California, you'll see 𝐒𝐿. So it's a spring water, and they are licensing apes from the community. So they were able to license like one ape right now for their 𝐒𝐿. It's from 𝐒𝐭𝐤𝐬𝐬, who is the founder of pudgy penguins. But they've already done another set of licensing for which ape will follow next after Luca. So what 𝐒𝐿 is doing, and what I liked about it, is it's giving the NFT community, especially like the ape community, another avenue for them to license their IP, to put their IP into like real life product. And that's very big for owners of NFTs, because like when you see your NFT in a real life product, you'll say, oh, okay, this is getting real. This is a real use case. And it's allowing NFT holders, especially like from the Bored Ape Yacht Club, to appreciate like, okay, this is like a real life product where I can put my NFT on.
Like something tangible. And it's also easy for people who aren't into Web3 to understand when they see it physically and they can like interact with it. It brings it to life. It's kind of the reverse of how we function now as a society. It's like physical to digital. This is digital to physical.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's super cool. There's a lot of companies coming out, a lot of brands. And what do you think is next in this whole IP game? What do you think the future will look like for this?
Yeah, so I think we're still just barely scratching the surface for NFT IPs. I think there would still be a lot of things that will be built in NFT IP, movies, series, music. Like all these things, I think there will be a lot of NFT involvement in this, and particularly IP. And as more people like Spotify, Snoop Dogg embrace their IP to create content, then it will create use cases for other creators as well in multiple platforms to also do the same. Here's a fun fact that I'd like to share. Just yesterday, Simpsons released the poster for their next Treehouse of Horror that's coming this Halloween. And that poster has NFTs on the top of it. So I feel like the story will be something around metaverse horror. Like the Simpsons will be in the metaverse and they'll see some horrifying stuff there. But in the poster, you can recognize there's Bored Ape, there's CryptoPunk, there's Doodles, there's CryptoKitties. So those NFTs there. And I think it's just like one of the next steps. I think as we progress with the advancements of NFTs and like more inclusion of these NFT IPs into like more of the real life IPs that we have, like movies, series, etc. I think there will be more of that moving forward.
That's really cool. So, The Simpsons always predicts everything first.
Yes, exactly.
So now you heard it here. Yeah, that's super cool. And it's very cool to see this small, 10,000 ape and, 20,000 mutant community has been able to penetrate, massive brands like Adidas and all the biggest partnerships in the world out of this small little community that started.
Yes. Great that you mentioned Adidas. I actually bought 2 of their shoes with their Bored Ape. So Adidas, like one of the biggest shoe brands in the world, apparel brands in the world, they own a Bored Ape. And they launched some apparel with their Bored Ape. So they launched a few shoes that features their Bored Ape. And that's a real life use case of like an IP that someone owns that they can sell and like people can buy straight from it. It's Adidas and it's a cool use case.
Yeah, and it's in some ways validating this space to those on the outside, right?
Yeah.
So it's cool to see big brands interacting within this movement. And, this talk right now that we're having here today, in a few years from now, when things have evolved a little more, we're going to look back and say, wow, okay, this was the very beginning, of scratching the surface of what's possible.
Yeah, but like what I said earlier, I think NFT IPs, it's just one of the first use cases out of NFTs. In my opinion, what it allowed creators or builders or brands to do is that they own the IP now and they can create something out of it. And that won't be possible without the blockchain and NFTs. Without Bored Ape Yacht Club tokenizing their 10,000 assets, 20,000 mutants, and distributing it across the community can't own the IP and can't build something out of it. So, like, a lot of people had been clamoring for like real life use cases. Oh, when can my house be like an NFT? When can the contract of my job be an NFT? I think it will happen, but it's still like ways away. And like right now, what we're seeing, at least this is one of the first use cases, like brands and like creators being able to distribute IP amongst their holders and their holders being able to build on top of it to make sure the brand grows.
Yeah, I have some iGaming clients that I consult for, and I've even heard talks among them that they're going to start implementing NFT like IP, like Bored Ape or something else to start attracting that audience there. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves and penetrate different sectors and communities. So
Yes, exactly. Exciting stuff.
yeah, very cool. Well, JBond, thank you so much for being here today. Go visit Bored and Hungry. It's in the Power Plant Mall. Right?
Yes, Bored and Hungry. It's in the Power Plant Mall. The Grid. The Grid is the food court within the Power Plant Mall. It's in stall number 7. Go try it out. And a quick plug as well. We will have a second branch soon. It will be in Robinson's Magnolia, a mall in Quezon City. So you see, it's really doing well because like we'll have another branch real soon, by September, probably.
Oh, that's so cool. So go give them a visit. And again, thank you for being here, JBond, sharing this with us. It was a real pleasure.
Yes, it was a pleasure to join you. Yeah, and meet you finally. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.